Is it rolling?
Yes.
It gets scary. Alrighty. As my face gets right up on it. So, the 8 Limbs of Yoga by Patanjali, 2,500, 5,000-year-old teachings. We're excited to teach this in the jail, to give these ancient teachings. And it all begins with the very first limb of yoga, called the Yamas, and it is Ahimsa. Ahimsa means nonviolence. So nonviolence means what? It means being nice, being kind, being compassionate. And I think in our everyday situation, what we do, we kind of follow along that suit. It's not until we're triggered that something happens, and then we have to somehow find a way to find that compassion within ourselves. So we're going to have a little bit of talk about how we do that on the mat, how we do it off the mat, and how it can be applicable to you in your daily life, and hopefully get some kind of freedom or liberation from suffering. Thoughts about talking about Ahimsa? Jess, Tara? Then we'll go into specifics.
Yeah, I think that in the world in general, but especially today where we're at, that all of the limbs of yoga are showing up in so many forms, especially the yamas and the niyamas.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely really excited to talk about it, both to share, but also to give more chance of reflection in my own life. I think that Ahimsa is a big one, and we hear the words non-violence and it's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be violent towards other people, but violence can be so much more than just that physical harm. Also violence with our thoughts, words, and then actions. So to me, the opposite of violence is peace, and when you practice Ahimsa, you can get peace in the mind and the body.
Yeah. I made a epiphany, well, several of them during this COVID-19, and one was, my mantra for so many years has been, I'd rather be at peace than to be right. But I have found I don't know how to be peaceful. Mm-hmm. I know how to be kind, and I can articulate it, I can write it, I know what that picture's like. To me, it seems like peace is a byproduct of being nice, of being kind. So for me to pursue kindness, I think was much easier for me, and it's taken my relationship to another level.
Yeah.
Just by being kind. That doesn't, I know you love me, I know you love me, but sometimes we're not kind to each other. Let's just be kind. And that has just been like absolutely amazing.
Well, and kind to others, but also ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, for me, it's easier to be kind to others than it is to myself.
That's because we will do anything to help another human being. But the things that we know that we should do to get healthier, to maybe push back on sweets or alcohol, not so much. But have a loved one ask me to do something for them, I'll forget about it. Blood all stops. I'll go without eating to help them out. So yeah. No, well, that's one of the things for Ahimsa. As a matter of fact, people have asked me, so how do you practice Ahimsa? What do you do? There's a couple things that I do that this is just brought up. One of them is this sense of when I get angry, or when we get angry, the whole world gets very small because something is being done to me. This is just me talking. It becomes very, very small. What's needed is to create space, right? Where I don't feel like I'm all alone and everybody's attacking me, where I'm so small. So what I do, and it comes from Pema Chodron, Welcoming the Unwelcome. She says, and her phrase is different. Mine is, I did that too. IDTT. If somebody gets me upset and I'm having a reaction, is it possible that I too have been a butthead to somebody? Is it true that I also have been not listening, or I've been, whatever, I've made somebody feel not very good about themselves? And the answer is yes. So immediately when you start to get triggered, recognize your own behavior in that person, what they're doing, and immediately say to yourself, I've done that too. And now it's not a sense of separateness where it's the other person and you here. Now it's this feeling of that. And then you can take it even bigger. This feeling of anger permeates the entire human condition. 7 billion people. Now you got all them also here. And now you're the person that can set it straight by putting it into the collective consciousness, by reacting totally different. And Tara Brach says to make a U-turn. Before you say anything, do a U-turn first. And if you're angry, gosh darn it, give yourself compassion. Give yourself, surrender and create space and, love on yourself first so that you can love others.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. Like, it's easier for me to be kind to others than myself, but at the same time, when I'm not being kind to myself, I can more easily be unkind to others. It's almost like a circle. Yeah.
It is. It's a circle of life. That's. I think it's key. One of the things that I talked about when I was in school teaching, and if you get a chance to look this up, Dan Siegel. I wanted Dr. Dan Siegel, PhD. I think it's Sigel. He talks about, in mindfulness, they talk about something called the amygdala hijack, which is exactly what happens to your brain when we get hijacked, when all of a sudden we go from being calm to being completely, totally upset, like you blow your lid. So if you get a chance, look at that. But to make a long story short, what he does is he shows you the hand model of the brain, and he tells you that the amygdala, the front fingers here, is called the wise owl, or the prefrontal cortex. Down here is the limbic system. This is the model of your brain, how your brain sits in your head. And when your amygdala, that guard dog, which is very, very ancient, comes from the limbic system, fight, flight, freeze, starts barking, it literally lifts your prefrontal cortex offline. And you're no longer thinking, because this thing is vibrating like you would not believe. So when this happens and you flipped your lid, there's no reasoning. There's none whatsoever. Have you ever seen anybody flip their lid? There's no reasoning, there's no rationalization. They have like lost it. And what Dan Siegel says, the way to bring that back online is name it to tame it. You name your feelings. And this works in psychology as well. When you're talking to somebody and they're upset and you go, looks to me like, this would be me like messing around, like you're very lonely and I know that my daughter is mad. And she'll say, no, Dad, I'm angry. The second that I get her talking, now her upstairs brain is coming back online. And then it hugs the amygdala and hugs the downstairs brain, keeping it nice and comfortable, keeping it nice and quiet. So you have to understand that trigger. And teaching in the schools, I've had kids say, Dr. Wyatt, I'm right here, getting ready to flip my lid. I'd have them go sit in the corner, but go take a time in, which was meditation cushions, and go sit and just breathe. Because the best thing you can do with anger is just pause. I think in mindfulness or Buddhism they call it noble silence. No kidding, don't say anything. Just pause and create as much space and distance as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think we as a society start having these uncomfortable emotions and we do whatever we can to not attend to them. So whether that be going to the bar, going out, all these places that now all of these things have been kind of taken away. So it's uncomfortable to just sit with these emotions that we had so many ways to kind of like not sit with before. But I think that's one of the ways I'm practicing Ahimsa in my life right now, is trying to honor every emotion that comes up and trying to take some time to sit with it. Even if it's not in this moment, it's acknowledging it and be like, putting it in a box and be like, I can't, I'm working right now, I can't sit with you right now, but I will come back to you. Because there's been lots of the emotions, and so trying to, instead of push them away or get mad at myself for having them, recognizing it's completely normal to be having all the feels and feeling it.
Yeah. Is it Rumi? Rumi, in that poem, The Guest House, says that they're all messengers. They're all here to teach you something. And what's interesting is if you don't learn the lesson, they'll continue to come back up in different ways. You'll find yourself angry about something else. You got to go beyond. What is it? What's the quote? The quote is, feel the feeling, but don't become the emotion. And we do that, right? Like every day. There's people that I see that I know truly and sincerely need a smack, but you don't do it. You don't do it, right? Because you get in trouble. So we constantly keep ourselves in check. Somebody cuts us off, somebody looks at us the wrong way, somebody's smelling kind of bad. We don't say everything that comes to our lips. But it's very interesting that when we get caught up in anger, forget about it. There's no restraint whatsoever. Restrain for strangers, but don't restrain for ourselves. And one of the mindfulness techniques they also talk about is something called be the neutral person. On the way driving here today, I saw tons of people. I saw people driving their cars. I saw some folks hiking and walking. None of them registered in my mind as a memory. Nobody at all. They're just neutral to me. So what if you could approach anger the same way? Or anything that's disconcerting to you as, I'm just going to be neutral, because guess what? It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And that's Byron Katie, by the way. That book, Loving What Is, it'll change your life. She says, just love what is. Just accept it. And Eckhart Tolle says the same thing. The second that you come in harmony with what's going on, even if it's bad, You can say, this is bad. I'm agreeing that this is bad. Now I got to do something about it instead of aversion, pushing it away. I don't like that. That's bad, and pushing it away. We tend to push things away that we don't want, or we cling to it. And in Buddhism, clinging and aversion, those are the two darts of suffering. That's what they say. And it's true, isn't it? The two darts of suffering. The first dart hurts. The story you tell yourself about why the person threw the dart, why did it hit you in the arm, what did you do to deserve it, how are you going to get back at them. It's the second dart of suffering that we suffer from the most. The initial pain, ouch, but then it's the stories that we tell ourselves. So in Buddhism, we talk about the second dart of suffering. I love that. And it's so true. A pain hurts, or an argument, and then the shit that I tell myself over and over and over again about that one little thing is more violent than the initial ouch.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, reliving it.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And then you blowing it up in your head, and
Yeah.
our brains have a tendency to make things a lot more painful than they
Yes.
need to be.
There's like a statistics.
Oh,
It's
please.
like after I don't know the exact one. It's like after, I think, so say an event happens to you, it makes you angry.
Yep.
I don't know what the exact number is, but after like a minute, it's a story. So when you keep telling it, it's over and over, it becomes a story.
I love it.
I don't even think it's a minute.
I think it's probably less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we attach to that
And you're,
story.
yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Instead of just,
Letting it go.
yeah, or being the observer of what happened, and okay, that's what happened. But now it's like, no, that happened to me. And I think a lot of what's going on now too, it's like all these things that's happening to me.
Yeah.
What if that's happening for us?
Yeah.
Or all the things?
In one of the ancient teachings, they talk about that. And it's something to the effect of, when you feel that something is happening to you and you have to respond right now to it, that is ego. Ego is always right now. Right now. The future is for the soul. The soul wants the future. So it would be, how is this going to look 2 days from now, 1 week from now, 1 month from now, 1 year from now? So whenever you do respond or react to an external stimuli, something that has made you angry, you've got to think about what the long-term effects are. That's what your soul wants. And if you find yourself dealing with, right now, this feeling, this event, then you are operating from the ego. And that's not part of the spiritual awakening path, they say. The more that you become spiritually awakened and dealing with anger, or not having anger, or not having anger, everybody has anger. Anger can be productive, it can also be violent. But it's to be able to use those energies, there we go. And that's probably the most weirdest thing I have found in the jails, and that is, or talking to people, when you're angry and you ask them, what do you feel inside your body? Where is the anger? Yeah, that's the question. Do you know, oftentimes I get the look like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I can tell you why I'm angry, what they did, but we're so detached from how we feel. No, where is it? Do you feel it in your chest, in your head? Do you feel it in your feet? Do you feel it? Have you watched it move in your body? In the East, they say that, or in the West, they say that we live and feel in our heads, not in our bodies.
Yeah.
Completely, not totally removed, but to be able to say, ouch, where do I feel this? Where do I feel it? And then immediately send healing breath right there, send a good thought right there. We know that where awareness goes, energy flows.
Yeah.
But Tara Brach does that a lot with, take a deep breath and breathe in and out from your chest. Find some other area that's in trouble or whatever, and breathe from that area. Inhale, exhale. I love those kind of techniques. The other one too is, she says, you can always pick a neutral spot. 3 neutral spots in your body. The second that you feel angry, you can say, what part of my body is not affected by that? So you bring your awareness to the palms of your hand. There's no stress in the palm of my hands. You bring it to your ears. There's no stress feeling in my ears. And you bring it to your lips. Your lips just touching together. So softly and gently. Those are 3 areas that are typically, well, not always calm, because their faces can get kind of crazy.
That's interesting though.
But I like that.
I'll feel the tension in my jaw a lot, but you're right, just lips, not as much.
Lips just barely touching. Is there any pressure there? Nope. Any pressure palms? Nope. Any pressure in the ears? Nope. right, then you're okay. So anyways, I thought that was a pretty cool technique. Look at what's not affected by it and draw on that. Yeah.
Well, and I think I've shared this before, like
Mhm.
I think starting to be able to come in touch with where it is, where the emotion is in the body,
Oh, sure, yeah.
like helps you not attach to it more. Lets you be the observer of that emotion instead of I am that emotion. So I think I shared before the one time that I got very angry and I felt it just kind of, I watched it move through my body, move all the way down into my leg, and then my foot just tap, 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 tap.
Remember you telling that story, yeah.
And it moved out.
Then
It
it
was-
moved on.
I literally just watched it. It was a really cool experience.
So what are some of the things that you do to help you guard against getting angry, always being loving, being kind, being friendly?
Yeah, practice Ahimsa. Do you have anything, Tara?
Well, for me, Ahimsa, it's more of being kind to myself, because that's what I struggle with most, and it's even like stress. You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
stress is not kind, and I deal with stress a lot,
No,
or
it's not.
negative thoughts towards myself, like I'm not good enough, or I can't. Like that's all harming. You know, that's all harming to yourself.
Right.
Non-violence, and that's what I struggle with most. First, like being kind to other people is easy for me, and it's a struggle to be kind to yourself. Once
Oh,
you're aware,
God.
being aware is the first step,
It is hard.
and then having like those negative thoughts towards yourself, or
Right.
stress is a big one. Stress is horrible on your body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's and trying to stay. I think trying to stay in the present moment, because usually when you're not in the for being kind to yourself, if you're stressed or not happy with yourself, you're probably thinking about the past or the
Right.
future, and you're not staying present. So being in the present moment and it's hard to practice Ahimsa for being kind to myself.
Me too.
Well, and I think
It's
the
the
relationship
hardest.
with that stress too, because I think stress can come and be a motivator if we allow it in that way. But when we sit there and attach with the stress and all those negative thoughts. So like one practice I think I've been trying to do with it to make it further away is like, okay, when I have those negative thoughts like I'm not good enough, I change it to I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough.
Oh, exactly.
And then one further,
Nice.
I notice that I'm having a thought that I'm not good enough. So now it's no longer that I'm not good enough. It's kind of two steps removed from that. I am the observer that sees that this thought is coming up. I don't know, I kind of
Yes.
am trying to practice that having these thoughts, because I used to get so mad at myself, like, another bad thought. And like that would cause me more anxiety and more stress and kind of perpetuate the stress and make that relationship even more toxic with the stress. So just being like, okay, I'm having stress, or I'm noticing that these thoughts are coming up, and that's okay. And now it's been easier to have those thoughts and be like, silly brain, you're doing that again.
Yeah, like kind of being the observer of them.
Yeah. Instead of being like, that is the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a thought.
I like that. What's his name? Michael A. Singer in The Untethered Soul talks about that other voice, the inner critic or the inner roommate, and talks
Yeah.
about what you just said, Jess.
That's the book
That I
in my
find-
bag right now.
Oh, is it really?
Untethered Soul. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, that inner critic. Yeah, absolutely. You got to create. And once you do, well, what he says in there, I don't know if you read this
I'm
yet.
just starting it.
You're just starting it?
Yeah.
So he says a statement in there that's like an English lesson 101. He says if you can see it, meaning, like you can see your own anger, then that's a subject-object relationship. And if you can see something, then it's not you. It's not you because you can actually see it, you can perceive it. So right away that creates separation, it creates distance from the emotion. I mean, I have a thumbnail, but I'm not a thumbnail, I'm a human being. So it's just the experience itself. And
you're not the emotion.
yeah, you're not. Isn't that something? Yeah. I love that. And emotions come from our thoughts anyway. And we know that thoughts are neurotransmitters meeting up with receptors. It's all chemicals. Crazy. Chemicals and our life story, our narrative, and our beliefs, and all that stuff that has happened to us, our experience. So that's what we're dealing with. And we're born into this life with pain, with misery, with sorrow, with sadness. All that stuff is just here. What do they call it in yoga? They call it begins with a D. Dukkha. is stress, it's pain, it's, you know, the weight of the world on your shoulders, and your job is to recognize that pain exists, suffering exists, and there's a way out of it, which is you just being kind to yourself. I think that's the message. It's to be kind to yourself. When you're kind to yourself, then you're kind to everybody else. What's that phrase? Hurt people hurt people?
Yeah. Yeah.
The times that I'm the most happiest, say around Hanukkah or people around Christmas, you know, you're at a light, people, no, go ahead, man, go ahead. You take the parking space. It's a time, it's an event that people are so nice. Why can't you create that every day?
Well, yeah.
Christmas every day, where you're just nice to people every day.
Every day. when you've filled yourself up so much,
Gosh.
It's so easy to kind of share that love that you've built up inside yourself versus I think when you're not giving it to yourself, it's easy to just snap at other people.
That's right.
You want to find someone else to blame. Like, oh, I'm having a crappy day. It's your fault. You cut me off. Versus like, oh, maybe they're going through some stuff. Like,
That's exactly it. Yep.
seeing humans as humans instead of humans as people who are out to get us.
Oh yeah, that's what I like about that. Just like me, because now there's commonality, even with a person that is bothering me or getting on my last nerve. Well, not last nerve. I call it my vagus nerve because that's mind, body, soul. My kids. Oh, don't get on Dr. Wyatt's vagus nerve. But yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. I find pausing helps me. Just pausing before I say anything. And not that I do that all the time, because I don't. I got to catch myself. But Tara Brock, in that U-turn, before you say anything, you got to be kind to yourself first. And I think she, in one of the podcasts I was listening to a couple days ago, she said something to the effect of, I've been asked, why do people yell when they argue or they get mad? Like, why do they yell? And she said, and I've had a range of answers before. And she said, the answer that the Buddha said was something to the effect of, because the heart closes down, you have to raise your voice to try to penetrate the distance and to get into the heart. The more painful it is, the louder it is that you yell, because we all have this intrinsic need for bonding, belonging. It's a huge sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And when we get angry, there's a need that's not being met. I don't know what the need is. You got to go inside and dig deep and find out. Let me pull this layer back. Why did that trigger me so much? Because of that incident. Well, when did that first happen in my life where I didn't feel like I was accepted or I was dismissed or whatever? Keep going back, keep going back, keep going back, and gosh darn it, you'll come right to a need of maybe it was that 7-year-old, that 8-year-old, you know, that didn't have a voice when something tragic happened. So, yeah, I like that.
And I think that's the practice, because that's
think
the
it is too.
hard work there. When you start digging into those things, more stuff comes up. And I think for a long time in my life, I was like, now I'm just gonna shove it down.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah, shove it down. That's right.
Because like opening that door lets it all come up, and then you have to deal with it all. But shoving it down, like when you open it up and let it come up, and then you at least have control over dealing with it all, versus when you shove it down, you got to deal with it. It's just going to come up when you don't want it and in different areas, and your body's aching and groaning and tension.
I was going to say something. I just had a thought came in and it went right out of my head. Gosh darn it. It was a good one.
Opened up.
Also, if
All of your thoughts are stuck.
Oh, give me some right here. Oh, jeez. Okay.
Noticing if someone, before you get triggered,
Okay.
so if someone's yelling at you,
Okay.
and you're getting triggered to be angry, noticing that the reason why they're angry is probably comes from within them, so not something you're doing.
Oh, great point.
Before you let your anger take over from someone else's anger, notice that their anger is coming from within them, not from something you did.
So
I
like
totally love
grace, I feel like is what's been coming up for me a lot, and I feel like grace is very tightly connected with Ahimsa, like giving myself grace, but then others grace, for what's coming up, because I think in especially a hard time when there's a lot of emotions going on for everyone, being like, okay, not attaching that, like, oh, he just yelled at me and that means I did something wrong, or I'm crappy, or even that he's all this. It's like, no, grace, because what could be coming up for him?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, we don't know what somebody else's pain is, their nightmares, their horrors. We just don't know.
And we're all on our own journey, our own path.
Yeah.
I think I had a close friend talking to me recently because I was like upset about something, and I was like, what if this person doesn't like me or something like that I was attaching to, and she's like, well, the thing is, you're all on your own path, so if you're not vibing with that person at this point, that's okay. You're still enough, even if that person has something. So just kind of honoring that's like, okay, we get to go on our own journey, and so then that's ahimsa. How can you not harm people on their path, so just taking that step back and like trying to think your actions through, like, okay, I'm doing this because of this reason, but could that be
sure,
harming still to other people's too? Like, I'm gonna say this because this is right and I'm gonna speak up for myself, but could that possibly be harming someone else's journey and harming someone else's path? And how are you affecting other people around you with your thoughts, words, actions?
Eckhart Tolle says that a lot. And so does Yogi Bhajan. That quote that we read in the jails, where Yogi Bhajan says something to the effect of, if you look at another's actions towards you as a reflection of the relationship they have with themselves, you'll cease over a period of time to ever get upset or ever respond or react at all. It's just noticing the fact that they have a very crappy relationship with themselves. And the story that I tell in the jails about the taxi driver picking up garbage, huge, where somebody gets you upset, somebody triggers you. The passenger inside of the taxi cab asks the guy, "You're not upset?" As people are honking, flipping him off, like really like being very belligerent, and he's just smiling away. And the guy in the back seat goes, "I would not be able to handle that." And he goes, "Well, people like garbage. They go around all day and they pick up garbage. When their truck gets full, they empty it. I don't care where it is or who it's at. It's human nature. What I choose not to do is pick up their garbage, put it in my pocket, bring it home. Now it's in my house, now it's in my car, now it's permeating my relationship with the missus, how I talk to the kids. I'm not picking up people's garbage, and I'm certainly not going to treat it like it's mine, because it's not."
Yeah.
And I went, oh, well, gosh darn it, well, right there. That's liberation right there. I love it. That little story right there has freed me, I think, more so than, I don't know, maybe other techniques. I'm just not going to pick up garbage.
And I think the question can be, well, like, how do I not pick up garbage, especially when you're first starting on these practices? But I think, like Tara was saying earlier, just the awareness, like just starting to bring some of these metaphors into your head when these things are going on. Like, oh, that person is throwing out garbage. I'm going to choose to not pick it up. And maybe this time I picked up just a little bit of it. But each time you kind of, okay, I'm going to work harder not to pick up the garbage. And so having your self-grace, like, oh, I did still pick up some. It's like, okay, but you were picking up all of it yesterday.
And now, look, only a little bit. That's right. You treat yourself nice. Boundless Heart is one of the books I just read, and Tara said that she picked it up. What you're going to find in there, my dear, why this particular book has moved me so much is because they talk about Brahma Viharas. Brahma Viharas are divine abodes or resting place. And what she says, Christina, I forgot her last name, in the book, is that if you rest, if your home, your heart, if your home is resting in 4 qualities, that's the qualities of your heart, that's the basis by which you move forward throughout the world. You always just refer back to those 4 qualities. And the acronym that it's not even a word, is JEC, which is joy, equanimity, compassion, and kindness. That's a resting abode. So resting abode, that's my home. If that's my center, that's my grounding point. Whenever I do anything, those 4 qualities, I can bring them to bear. When I'm sad, I can bring on joy. When I feel like I'm, not seeing the full picture, I can bring up equanimity, how to be balanced, and how to be fair, and take it easy, etc., etc. Same thing for kindness. But I have found, it's like a pre-planned response. Like I have these 4 tools, just those 4 words, those 4 descriptive adjectives, verbs and nouns, with which to do whatever. If I'm going to be, being upset, I'm going to be upset with those 4 virtues, and if I can't, then I'm not going to do it. I'm resting. That's my new home base. Joy, equanimity, compassion, and kindness. I love that.
Yeah.
Divine abodes. I like to rest there with those 4 qualities, no matter what I do. And it's doable. It's a work in progress. Got to bring it back. That's not joyful. That's sad. That's this. That's that. Honor it, love it, cherish it, hug it, and then let it go. I've also found that bracing, which we tend to sometimes do in yoga, has not caused me to kind of freak. And by bracing, I mean when somebody hurts you, it's like ouch. There's a stiffening. It's never incline the heart towards it and then surrender and let it go right on by. But I've become more, I don't know, transparent, or I'm trying to become more transparent by letting things that are not going to serve me pass right through, and then wish it well on its way, just like clouds going by, because it's all transient. You know for a fact that a couple minutes, another thought will come up, another pain will come up, another gosh darn memory will come up. But that's the law of impermanence, right?
Yeah.
That nothing stays the same every day. Where cells are dying, things are happening. Things are happening. You don't have to get, hung up on something that's happening and look at it as being, the definitive statement, about you. It's all passing. It's all passing. What's really important? Yeah, to live with ahimsa. And then, of course, we didn't talk about eating, but ahimsa. So those that like to eat red meat, good on you. But can you, once every 16 weeks, the first week being ahimsa, maybe letting go of some red meat, or if you eat eggs, to go and get the eggs that are, cage-free or range-free eggs, you're doing your part of non-violence, so to speak, to our planet. Walking meditation, every time that we walk, and by the way, there's people that don't have legs. My mom is missing a leg, so how much do we take walking for granted? I don't know. But in mindfulness walking, it's very painful lifting up one foot, putting the heel down, the foot off the toe. It's over 300 muscles that involve walking or taking a step, which I find to be quite amazing. But to mindfully walk, and every time my foot hits the ground, send out beautiful energy, love, compassion to the whole world that's hurting right now, I think is a huge thing to do. It's a very noble cause to undertake.
Yeah, and I think another point to ahimsa is this idea of not forcing. I think on the mat, if you have like a yoga practice, you can kind of see that sometimes come up, like, I am going to fold all the way forward in this pose, or I am going to make sure I touch my toes, even if that's not what serves me in this day, on this side, in this practice. So I think practicing the physical postures of yoga, you can see a lot of these other limbs come up, where it's instead of just giving yourself grace for where your body's at in that day and not forcing, but then off of the mat, how much of my life am I trying to be like, no, this is what I want, I want to be able to go wherever I want right now, I want things to be open, I want to be able to go to a restaurant, to a bar, I want all these things. I'm going to force, and I'm going to be very angry and cause myself a lot of suffering, because all the forcing I'm going to do, I want this to be over, I want to force this to be over, it's not going to work. So I've been practicing a lot of just like surrender. So surrendering to
the moment.
The moment, the greater plan. Something is going to guide us. We are on this journey, and if we keep going forward, we're going to get through it. Just like any hardship in life, like any breakup that in the moment seemed like the worst pain that you were going to die from, but you get out on the other end, you're like, oh wow, I can't believe I went through that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because the inmates have said that before about, I have heard more stories about the worst thing that could have happened was me getting arrested. Come to find out, it is not. It's the best thing that could have happened to me, because now I realize I've learned, I'm a much better person at the end of it, whatever. The person that is experiencing the pain is not the same person that arrives at the end of it. Totally different person. That's transformation. But we get that a lot. And in my own life, the pain, the anguish, I've come out of it much better. Having gone through it. Oh yeah.
Grateful.
Always look
And grateful. Yes, ma'am.
Look for the lesson within.
Oh, the lesson. That's right. That's right.
That was at the last class. One of the men shared with me, and it really touched me about how he is grateful for all of these hard times he went through. And you know, the yoga has kind of shown him that too, that like all these things like getting arrested and his struggle with drugs and things like that helped him suffer so low that he was willing to go. I think he, you know, spoke to it of like God's help, and it's gotten to the point where he was been able to surrender to God or the universe, wherever you're
Love it.
believing there's this like greater guiding force. But instead of us trying to be in control and forcing everything, kind of that practice of surrender. And like sometimes it takes a lot of hardship till you get to the point of like, crap, I don't know what I'm doing. Someone else has got to take control instead of me keep trying to force, because
Yeah.
the more I force, the more I mess up. So
Yeah.
know that, yeah, surrender, grace, a lot of things that I've been working on in my life right now. And then
Me too. Rain.
yeah,
Tara Brock talks about RAIN. RAIN is the acronym of when something happens, recognize it, allow it, investigate with kindness, and have absolutely no attachment to it. So that can happen real fast, or it can happen like in stages. So I love that.
I feel like all the things we are sharing is really just coming back to that idea of mindfulness and being separate from it. So like being aware, having acceptance of what something is, but not being that attached to it. It's interesting, the more we talk, the more I see every other limb come up in what we're saying.
I've started to see this thread where my mind started going, it's this limb right here, nonviolence, which means compassion, friendliness, etc. So, and if you're normally not that way, friendly and open, and you're normally a person that is prone to violence, then there's a whole lot of work. But I don't know what book I was reading. I was talking about this is cosmic kindergarten. Every lesson that we need to learn is going to keep coming up until we learn it. And until we learn it, we're not going to graduate from the first grade to the second grade and keep on moving up to our higher selves. You've got to handle this lower stuff first. Like, you just have to. And I guess Maslow's hierarchy of needs says the same thing. You know, that basic level of food, shelter, water. If you don't have that, you're not even going to start with, you're not going to get to self-esteem or self-actualization if you're still down here struggling with, I have to eat, I don't know where to sleep. So, got to fill the basis first.
But yeah, how can you show that kindness? I really think that, like, I really liked what you said at the beginning about peace. Like, you can't do peace, but you can do kindness, and peace can be an after product from that. Like, I just want to be peaceful.
Yeah, and it's so black and white, isn't it? Like, you know what's kind. What's kind and what's not kind, because you can ask a little one. They could say, no, you didn't say that kind. You know, you said it hard, you know, whatever. You know, everybody knows when they're treated kindly. And I've just subscribed to human kindness. Being kind to myself and to others. Especially when it's difficult. That's when I have to pause, watch it, because I raise my voice a lot. And lately I have not. So, it feels wonderful.
We are all humans.
Yeah, humans becoming.
Yeah, on a path.
Yeah. Any last, maybe not one thing to like.
We can talk.
Oh, we can
38
talk.
minutes.
Oh, 38 minutes. So, on that note, in the jail, Ahimsa, yeah, normally we would have gone to, no, actually, well, yeah, we wouldn't have spent as much time on Ahimsa, but I don't know, it just depends. Some days we talk more about it, other days not so much, so we don't have the questions and answers here with people, you know, asking us questions, but I'm hoping that when we do post this and people that are interested and we forward them the link to get feedback on, hey, you know, give me some more of that, or books to read, or actual techniques. If you get a chance, look up. So for breathing, with regards to anger, you find yourself angered. Now that I'm in the state, what do I do? There's a lot of different breathing techniques that are out there. 4-7-8 seems to be one that's huge, and that's where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. Or the way to get out of fight, flight, freeze, you're triggered, fight, flight, freeze, to get into rest and digest is to make your exhale longer, make it double the inhale. So if you inhale for 4, you exhale for 8. Inhale for 8, you exhale for 16. They told me there'd be no math involved, so I'm not going any higher than 8. But the point is, you double the exhale, so you're getting rid of more carbon dioxide, bringing in this much oxygen, but getting rid of this much carbon dioxide. So there's a breathing technique for you. Inhale for 4, exhale for 8, 4, 7, 8. And if you get a chance, look up EFT, which is emotional freedom tapping, or it's also referred to as thought field therapy.
And all of that kind of creates that space for pause.
Yeah, it
Pause,
does.
so that you can be an actor instead of just a reactor. You have a choice. Because I don't know about you guys, but I mean, there has been many times in my life where I like went off on someone and felt really great about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like I did it, and I kept doing it, and I felt empowered in it in the moment. But it's like,
I told that.
I, often wish I could have found that space for pause, but until
me
you
too.
practice these things in the rest of the areas of your life, when you're triggered, that's the game. Or like, that's you gotta have a practice beforehand,
Yeah.
so that you're not just in the game like soccer or any sort of. You don't just show up for the game without ever having any practice. You gotta practice these things in the rest of your life, so that when time happens for you to use it, like you're triggered, you can actually call on your tool bag.
Oh, yeah. And the thought that I had earlier that went in my mind and out, it was NLP. Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, how you change a behavior. Some of you might say, but this behavior, meaning how I respond when somebody does X, Y, or Z, has been ingrained. Yes, I got it, but we've all learned differently, right? As a child, having a complete conniption or a temper tantrum. Now, if I don't get what I want, I don't have a temper tantrum, so I've been able to change. But what surprises me, I had this discussion with my wife not too long ago, maybe a couple days ago, was with the vast amount of choices to react. I'm like right here. Extremely predictable. I think your loved ones, parents, whatever, might say, oh, when so-and-so gets angry, here's what they do. And they can like list them. So of all the vast possibilities of reactions, it just strikes me as so wild that I stay with, or as of late, I stayed within this cone, raising the voice, closing the door, not want to talk to anybody, whatever. And yet it could be wide open with,